Hello. You know, guilt is a transaction, and your job is not to buy. Hello. Hello, my dears. Welcome. I'm doing another morning session with you, this time about what to do, how to get rid of guilt, how to not participate. And the main thrust is guilt is transactional. It is in exchange for something. So today, my intention, how are you doing, by the way? You doing okay? Gosh, it's been about a decade now, hasn't it? You are perfectly relevant in my life. Thank you. Meaning you're important to me, and I'm glad you're here. And I see you. And I appreciate you, and I know it's hard sometimes. And part of what makes life hard is feeling guilty. So many of us come right back magnetized to guilt. I was thinking about you because as more AI slop and schlop fills the internet, people are going to want authenticity, kindness, joy, having fun, rainbow shirts. They're going to want real human friends and real human connections. And I feel such a real, important connection to you. So today, this morning, I'll tell you my intention, and then we'll see if I actually get there. My intention is to explain to you how guilt works, review what guilt is exactly, review why we are so drawn to it, why we are so magnetized to it, how did it get put in place for us, and why it feels like a matter of life and death for us. So we're going to talk about that so you have all the context. And then I want to tell you a little story about going no contact with my family and the wave of guilt that went along with that and how I worked through it. And then the very last thing I want to share with you is some encouragement and some kindness about what to do instead. And I'll give you a little clue, a little cliffhanger for later in the video. You'll want to be open to the information you need without the guilt. So when, not even if, when we've hurt somebody, when we've done something we wish we hadn't done, can we be open to the information without it meaning we're a horrible person? I'll teach you how to do that in just a moment. But first, what the heck is guilt? How does it work? Why do we do it? And you may have noticed, if we think of guilt as a transaction, which I, by the way, don't hear too many people thinking about. So when I'm coaching with clients, they're magnetized to guilt. And what I'm about to teach you is based on the Buddhist teachings that I learned at the monastery. I've spent 25 years studying Zen and looking at and breaking down the way we feel, the why we feel, the way we do things, the why we do things, where patterns come from, and what we can do about it. When it comes to guilt, someone, I don't need to say someone, do I? A parent supplies the guilt, and you do what they wish. You're thinking you're a junior in college, and you're thinking, I'm not going to come home for Thanksgiving this time. A parent supplies the guilt, and oop, you're home for Thanksgiving. It's a transaction. It's someone in your life, doesn't have to be a parent, could be, a manipulative partner, a friend, anybody. They put in input, guilt, you should feel bad, you should feel guilty. They put in the input, and your output is whatever they were angling for, whatever they wanted. Generally, you sacrificing something, time, mental health, self-esteem. You sacrifice something to give them what they want. So do you have the contours of the transaction? And in my childhood, let me take a sip of water. In my childhood, it could be a look. It didn't have to be, you should feel bad, you should do what I want. It didn't have to be verbal even. It could be a stance and a, you know that one? And the transaction was already started, in place, and I was getting out my emotional wallet, handing over every credit card, social security card, and all the cash, metaphorically speaking, of the wallet, sacrificing something about myself for whatever the person wanted. I was about to say something specific, but it doesn't even have to be specific. If someone's truly manipulative, it may be something to do with loyalty, hierarchy stuff. You show that you're a lower part of the hierarchy than that person, etc. But for the context of our conversation today, it doesn't even matter. Guilt is transactional. Guilt is supplied, guilt is laid upon you. You deliver the product, which is you sacrifice something to deliver the product of, they want you to do something, they want you to be something, they want you to say something. And the interesting thing, to put it in this transactional capitalist sort of context by way of metaphor, is you don't have to supply. You don't have to provide your part of the transaction. You don't have to sacrifice. You don't have to do what they want. It's gonna be difficult. It's gonna feel bad. It's going to not be easy, but you are worth 0 guilt. Finding a way to get to 0 guilt. And again, third part of our little program today that I designed for you, we're going to talk about how to take in information, how to change, how to grow as a human being with 0 guilt. But that's what we're gunning for, because probably you have a belief. You have a belief down there, somewhere in here, in here, in here. You have a belief that guilt makes you a better person. In this transactional nature, it's like, oh, they supply the guilt. It's proof you're a bad person if you sacrifice yourself. And if you do what they want, then you're back on track to being a good person. But of course, you're never a good person. You never prove it. You never arrive as a good person, because the entire orientation is, I'm proving I'm a good person, not I am a good person. 2 different things. So I'll tell you a brief little story. When I was young, this would be 6-7 years ago now, I talked about it on TikTok a lot. When I decided I was going to go no contact, I decided that it was, and this was specifically with my mother, I had a very strained relationship with my dad, and so I wasn't going to have a discussion with dad. I wasn't going to have a discussion with mom either, it turns out. But I was going to tell her, because she would then pass it on to the rest of the family, and I knew that telling that one person would take care of no contact for the family. And I decided, for my own mental health, it didn't have to be permanent. It was just going to be for a while, 3 months. I forget what I had decided. I think it was 3 or 4 months in my mind. And then we'd reassess. And the guilt. I remember saying to a friend, I can't do it because I don't want to be the kind of person who would do this. And so you may be keeping score. My mother or anybody else didn't have to supply the guilt, from our little transaction we were talking about a moment ago. Did not have to do anything. I was doing it to myself as an internal process. And I didn't want to be the kind of person who would abandon their family, kind of person who would abandon their mother. And I eventually sent a text. I worked through that, through journaling and telling myself, I love you, I'm going to be with you no matter what happens. And so I decided to send the text. Mom, you won't be hearing from me for a while. And then she supplied the guilt. And by the way, I don't blame her. I don't blame anybody in my family. They have a different version of this story, I'm sure, too. But this is my video. I'm telling you my version. She texted back in all caps, "What the F? What TF?" So word what, TF, is that supposed to mean? Supplying the guilt so that I would snap to, sacrifice my needs, and forget I ever mentioned it. I mean, I think what I was supposed to do was say, "Oh, I'm not sure what it means, but I'll call you tomorrow." Right? Breaking my commitment to myself. I did not do that. I actually did not respond. And I blocked everybody in my family and decided to be committed to myself and take care of myself and not participate in the transaction that is guilt. So there are a few elements here that you need to keep in mind. By the way, I mentioned AI slop. This is just me. I'm not even working off an outline. This is just me telling you the story and me telling you what I worked through because I want this genuine, real person connection with you. That's what you deserve. That's what I deserve. It's ironic, I guess. This real parasocial relationship we have. No, we have a real connection. And it's part of the reason I do workshops and public appearances and places where we actually can be in the same room. But this is part of building our relationship and our friendship. So, guilt starts with letting you know what's wrong with you, putting the pressure on, and you can do that as an internal process if someone's thoroughly trained you, or they can just trigger those things. You know that phrase, if a parent has installed your buttons, they know how to push your buttons. But it's just that little and you snap to it and you do your part of the bargain. Now, is it possible to stay with yourself, to love yourself, to be kind to yourself, and receive information that something you did was not the most skillful thing on earth to do? Maybe someone's genuinely hurt, which might be helpful information to you. By the way, it may not be. They may be manipulating you and you have to suss it out. But maybe someone's feelings are genuinely hurt. So how can you repair? How can you discuss? How can you be present with both of you without the guilt? That's what we're trying to do. And that's why clearing out the internalized guilt, the times when we do the manipulator's job for them, the time when we do the narcissistic parent's job for them, just because we were trained into it, can we stop that stuff so that there's a clarity? And I'll give you the hot tip. Ask follow-up questions. So I assessed in my little story that what TF does that mean was not someone who was centered and trying to communicate something guilt-free to me. And so I just stopped the conversation. Another technique you may use. But if someone said to me, "You really hurt my feelings," and I don't know if it's good faith or bad faith, I can ask a follow-up question to find out. So they say, "You hurt my feelings." And I say, it doesn't even have to be a fancy follow-up question. I say something like, and you have to forgive me, I have a hair somewhere. Do you know how that is when you can feel it? I can feel it. They say, "You hurt my feelings," and I follow up with something, not even fancy, like, "Could you tell me a little bit more about that? What is that like for you? How did it hurt your feelings? I'd love to know more." And then if they start in the guilt trip with, well, you're a terrible human being, and if you were a better human being, you would, you know what it is. Then you know what you're dealing with. But if they come back to you with an answer like, well, when I was a kid, I got treated this way, and it just really hooked into something that was really deep for me, then you're off to the races of clear communication that deepens your relationship. See, guilt always reinforces a separation. That's why, if we call it a transaction, it's two separate people in there. You give this, and then you get this, right? And it reinforces that separation between the people. But clear, beautiful communication between people, clear, loving, kind, guilt-free communication always centers the connection between people. And in that way, it's honestly easy to repair because it's easier to fully communicate. So that person could say, it sparked this thing, this pattern I'm looking at with my therapist, and it just really triggered something in me, and it hurts. It's emotionally difficult for me when you talk that way. And then I can say something like, I'm so glad you said that. This really brings up a lot for me because I care about you and I want you to feel good. And I'm also worried about not having friends, and that maybe I'm the problem and the pattern, and you can be just as vulnerable and open with them. But when relationships are built on guilt, there is no way to get closer. When relationships are built on guilt, there is zero chance for repair. There is zero chance for feeling better, for feeling closer, for feeling like you have self-esteem. So, another hot tip for yourself is to take space if you need it. One thing about the transaction is that it's meant to snap you into place and snap you into place quickly. There was almost nothing else I could do, from that, in my assessment, from that text from my mother, but to just snap right into place and say, oh, nothing, I'll call you tomorrow. Or call her immediately and be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I should never have said it. It's meant to reassert the power dynamic and do it immediately and quickly. And if you say to someone, you might recognize with your boss, let's say that's a classic, with your boss that you're doing an internal guilt process. Your boss asks you to do something you actually can't do. And then you have this overwhelming wave of guilt when you think of saying no. You say to your boss, let me check my schedule and my calendar over the next couple days. Can I get back to you in about a half an hour? You stop the wheel of guilt. And by that I mean rolling, like metaphor. You stop the rolling guilt, the pattern, and you say, I'd like a half an hour. And trust me, within 5 minutes, you'll have a sense of clarity. But all you need is that space. Okay? Space, clear communication, follow-up questions. I was about to say be vulnerable. Don't be vulnerable with a manipulator. But, be open to perhaps having a vulnerable conversation with someone if you suss out that they're acting in good faith. I'm so grateful to have these morning sessions with you. Who knew I could do videos longer than 30 seconds? With my plastic souvenir cup. This is what we're here for. This is what life is about. And I'm so grateful to be connected with you. Yes, you can coach with me one-on-one. Yes, we can deepen this relationship in a Zoom where you get to tell me whatever you need to tell me. I'm delighted you're here. And I want you to take excellent care. And I'll see you tomorrow.